Welcome back, everybody. You guys are gluttons for punishment. You keep coming back to the Christianese podcast, just in case you didn't know where you were. This is the Christianese podcast where we call Christians out and we call each other up. I want to do better at being a Christ follower, and those of you that are listening, or most of you that are listening, want to do that too. So, wanted to have a little brief conversation today. Today's going to be a bit of a short conversation. I keep referencing all these things that we should do better and whatnot. Well, how do we learn how to do that? Well, I've got some resources for you. So, are you ready? Let's roll. Yeah, so I keep talking about different ways that we need to do better, and some of them, admittedly, they're a little on the cheesier side. The bumper stickers that we live by, they crack me up more than anything else, but they're kind of lame at the same time sometimes. They drive home a point, and I get it, but sometimes we tend to live that way, yada yada. I've harped on a few different things. But I know that I haven't left a whole ton of resources for us to find ways to do better. And I think that'd be a helpful thing. So I just wanted to take a few minutes today and drop a quick episode about some of the resources that I tend to go to find different types of insights. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. There's a lot of different things out there that can be really helpful. But I wanted to share a few that I find pretty rad. And so hopefully you can find some of these and give them a listen, give them a read, whatever the case is. So just some things to think about. So the first group of things I want to share with you are some podcasts that I listen to. And I know all 6 of you that are listening are saying, no, we don't listen to any other podcast. Whatever, you're full of it. The first one, though, that I will share is, and this is my home church, Athey Creek Christian Fellowship. We go through the Bible, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, and we study the Bible. And so again, this podcast is geared towards Christians. So if you're not one of those, listen to it through that lens. All right. So when Pastor Brett speaks, it's not just some of these other folks that I've referenced before where it's just, a motivational talk with some Bible verses sprinkled into it. The guy's funny, and to some extent entertaining, but he calls it like it is, but he says what it means, and then what we can learn for our life from that perspective. And so there's a Athey Creek audio podcast, and you can tune into that podcast and see what Brett has to say on that. He's on YouTube as well, so you can catch everything that goes on there. It's a little side note, a lot of Christian music, and I hope to get to this as an episode sometimes. A lot of Christian music, frankly, is lame, and it sucks. It's just kind of catered to the cheese ball, and I don't like that. But if you like kind of that folky style, Athey Creek puts out some pretty good music. So, yeah, check it out. Athey Creek Music, Athey Creek Audio Podcast. You can find that on Spotify, I know for sure, and probably anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. Next thing is Family Life. This is a podcast that is hosted by Dan and Ann Wilson. Family Life is a big family organization, and they try to coach and help families with just behaving in a godly way. And I find it really valuable. It's kind of notes on life, if you will, and it's valuable. So Family Life, look that one up. Dan used to play. So for those sports fans here, Dan used to play quarterback. He was quarterback for some big place. I think he played for the Detroit Lions too. But he served as chaplain for the Lions, which as a Bears fan, Poor kittens. Poor kittens. Aww. So that's a good one. Another one that I've listened to for a long time, and he's easy to listen to, partially because he's got a really great Scottish accent. Truth for Life. This guy's out of Cleveland. I know, Cleveland. But he's there, and his podcast is called Truth for Life. Alistair Begg. And he's a really, really good teacher. And every once in a while, I kind of go, not sure I came to the same conclusion as you, but good to think about. Good stuff to kind of put in my brain and allow my soul to catch up, or vice versa. So Alistair Begg, and it's spelled weird. So, he's Scottish. So it's supposed to be spelled in a different way than American English. Really good stuff. This is a newer one to me, and I have loved it. And the reason it's called Bema, Bema, and the host is Marty Solomon. And Marty is a Messianic Jew. And so he practices a lot of the Jewish festivals and things, but he comes at it from a Christ follower perspective. So what he does is really cool, and you don't see this a lot in Western society, in the Western church, where he really incorporates the Eastern mindset of which the Bible was written in. Hello. And when he talks, it's all about, so how do we understand this from the ancient Jewish perspective? And then we know we hear the scarlet thread that goes through the Bible. It's all about Jesus. Well, yeah, but in order to deeply understand that, we really need to understand what the Jews were thinking. Those people are really important. And the whole Old Testament is them. And so we really have to pay attention to that. So his perspective, as he discusses all things Judeo in the Judeo-Christian connection, are pretty sick. So in a good way. Mom, it's okay. I don't mean I'm sick. But Bema, it's through Bema Discipleship, and they're based in they're up in the Palouse. I think they're in Idaho, but they might be over in Washington. They're in that area of University of Idaho and Washington State, kind of that not compost. That would be awkward. They're up there in that neck of the woods. So anyway, Bema, really good stuff. Another podcast that I've really enjoyed is the Bible Recap. And part of the reason I like it is because if I'm just making a short little drive, I can grab that, and it's a short one, and they're little snippets of something that happened in the Bible that you can digest it a little bit more as they discuss it. So the Bible Recap is a good one. And then for those of you who like rock, and frankly for those that don't, Cooper Stuff. So really talented musician. This dude gets flack from the super conservative people that got their hair cut with a suck cut type folks, because he goes on stages with the big dogs in metal. His group Skillet, you've probably heard of them. If you like that style of music and you like someone that likes to break down current issues and then see through it in a biblical lens, Cooper Stuff is really good. I've really been enjoying listening to John Cooper. And John Cooper, if you're listening, why don't you join me? Let's talk about some Christianese. That'll be fun. All right, so some books. Let's talk about some books. I know there's non-readers, there's readers, but the great thing is we can listen to a book not on CD. Nobody does that anymore. But we can listen to it on Audible or various other places. So I'm going to give you a few books that I've found really beneficial for me just to understand things or try to understand things. I've talked about we need to go deeper. We need to be deeper thinkers and therefore deeper actors, when we take bigger actions, when we take a deeper look into our soul and into our mind. So these books have helped me in that. Hopefully you can grab some of these. A lot of you have probably read some of these, or at least know of them. If you haven't read them or listened to them on Audible or whatever the case is, go grab it. And they're worthwhile. So the first one is 2 books by the same author, similar, but not quite the same. So the first one was Case for Faith, and then The Case for Christ. So Lee Strobel was a journalist, and he was an atheist, and he set out to do an article that disproved Christianity altogether. And through the process, he went, I'm wrong. Oh no. And so he changed his whole life, and so he came out with this book, Case for Faith, and that was the first one in a series of many that discussed the case for the biblical worldview. So good book, Lee Strobel, Case for Faith, Case for Christ. Next one that is kind of a reference book, and this one's been really, really good for me to kind of go, well, I don't know, I got to think about that. But to go and kind of dig up at least some startup answers for thinking more deeply or understanding a factoid that somebody disagrees with, something like that. It's Josh McDowell's Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And there's a couple, like 2 or 3 different versions, but that one is a really good one. So if you're going, I don't understand how it could be that Jesus actually is proven to rise from the dead. Well, okay, there's some stuff in there on that. And so there's a myriad of subjects in that book. And, it's one that gets you to at least start thinking along the lines of what is to be known about these subjects. And then if you're into more of a philosophical type of a mindset, or maybe you should be into more of a philosophical mindset, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, of course he wrote that, but Mere Christianity is a thick look. And by thick, I mean kind of like the belly that I've got in front of me. It dives into some of those deeper things that I had to go through it a couple of times, and it was a good thing I had it on Audible, because I would not have made it through. My brain couldn't handle reading that stuff, but I went through it a couple of times, and it moves the mind and then solidifies some things. He's a smart cookie. So C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. This is another one, a lot like C.S. Lewis, but different. And it's more along the lines of church history and how we now should live because of that. But it gives you a deeper understanding of the soul level stuff and the historical stuff, kind of the early church fathers, the early Christian philosophers and so forth. How should we then live? By Francis Shaefer. Francis Shaefer wrote this book, and I don't know when it was, but it's not young. We'll say that. So here's another one that I've referenced before. Foxe's Book of Martyrs by John Foxe. Foxe with an E. So look up Foxe's Book of Martyrs, and it's a history of the early church, but through the lens of seeing how people were martyred for their faith. And there's some pretty ugly stories in there because we're humans and we're broken and bad, but people that continued to attest to who Christ is, and they were killed for it. So interesting one there. Here's one that I have on my list, and I haven't gotten there yet, so maybe some of you want to join me in this one. Church History in Plain Language by Bruce L. Shelley. To go through, listening through church history gives a better understanding of where some of the oopses and fall downs that we have come through really have come from. So it's the whole history thing. If we don't learn our history, we're destined to repeat it, right? And that doesn't apply just to nations. That also applies to people groups like Christianity. And then this one's a more of a prayer book, but it's understanding and walking in a prayerful mindset. This is by a Chinese missionary named Watchman. This dude is a thinker, and this is a thin book, but it took me several weeks trying to sit down and just read it. I couldn't. I'd get through a page and go, what? Huh? So it's called Sit, Walk, Stand by Watchman Nee, and N-E-E is the last name. Check in the show notes. I'm going to have links for a bunch of this stuff. So that's one that if you want to increase a prayer life, man, check out Sit, Walk, Stand. It's amazing. It's been a really good one to go back to. Unfortunately, somebody borrowed it from me and never brought it back. So I'll find you. And one of the things I've discussed before is learning how to rightly divide the word. We've heard that in scripture where we need to rightly divide the word of truth. So it's that whole concept of, we can't just say what it means to me. I don't care what it means to you. I really don't. I love hearing how you found that it applies to you, but I don't need to know what it means to you and how you've created it to be interpreted. So it's important that we understand how we should read the Bible. So two things that I've found on that for you to kind of check into. One is called the Bible Project, and it's a course online that you can take for free that teaches you some of those basics on studying the Bible. And they also have a podcast, so you're welcome to hop in there on that podcast list and listen into the Bible Project there. And here's a tool that I use pretty frequently when I'm trying to understand something, what it means, is I go to Blue Letter Bible. And what I like about it is there's a bunch of people that have studied a whole lot more than me, and I can listen to hear what they've studied and what they've found and what they've learned, but I can also cross-reference and find out what the actual word means. Yeah, so if I'm reading something from Paul, right, and I want to find out what a certain word is in Greek, that original interpretation of what was said there, I can pull that word up and say, oh, that doesn't really jive with the English modern understanding of that word. Well, if that's the case, then this probably means that. Oh my goodness, my soul is blown to pieces. So, Blue Letter Bible, free resource online. And then the last thing that I want to say is that it's pretty amazing to get a mentor. Somebody that knows you really well, but also somebody that knows more than you. So I know that there's been older people that have sought out younger people, not because of age difference, but because of experience difference. If I wanted to go fishing, there's a guy named Ryan Perry that I'd probably reach out to. And dude's probably, I don't know, what are you, Ryan? Maybe 10 years younger than me? Age doesn't matter in that case. He could teach me a lot about fishing. And granted, we'd have to go to Jackson Hole together, so that just wouldn't suck. But same with understanding your theology is seeking out people that know more than you and being able to bounce questions off of them. I find that really, really valuable. For me, it's Gordon. Gordon, keep doing what you're doing. I love you, man. You're a great dude. So yeah, find a mentor. That can be a challenge, but worth the seeking to go and find yourself a theology mentor. And maybe it works out to be a life mentor too. I don't know. That's going to be up to you. You got to search for yours and find the value in it. So again, this episode is really geared around helping to find some resources that can help us to stop doing dumb things as Christians, mostly so that we know the word better. The Bible is our sword. Of all these resources, read your Bible, folks. If you get into that book and let it read itself to you, you will have a much higher value from it. So I highly encourage everyone to check into these things, but read your Bible. If you don't have one, email me and I'll figure out a way to get you one. So I think that's it for today. I know I kind of wanted to give you those resources that are the things that I've been annoying you about. So I hope you enjoy your day, and thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'll talk to you next time. I love you.
To support Christian News with J.D. Shin, click in the show notes. It'll help my dad create future shows.